This is part 2 of a series on housing assistance. I am publishing these episodes at a time when nearly 25 million people reported that they will not be able to pay rent in the next month, and almost 30 million people said they don't have enough to eat. In this episode, I talk with Carol Golden, the chair of Housing Initiatives of Princeton and also a member of the Affordable Housing Board of Princeton. If you haven't already listened to episode 1 of this series, I recommend you do so now.
If you're tired of arguing with strangers on the internet, try talking with one of them in real life.
Welcome to Back in America, the podcast.
Welcome to Back in America, Carol.
Thank you, Stan. Happy to be here.
While we were preparing this interview, you told me that a lot of this passion for volunteering and helping others comes from maybe your parents. Your dad was a lawyer, your mom was a teacher. Can you take me back to those early days and maybe how that has forged who you became?
Both my parents were basically civil servants. My father was a lawyer, but he was appointed to be a judge of workers' compensation for the state of New Jersey when he was pretty still young in his career as a lawyer. He had been an assistant U.S. attorney briefly. But so most of his career was as a administrative law judge overseeing cases of workers' comp, which is, for those of you who don't know, is when people get hurt at work. We have a system that New Jersey was one of the most progressive states in the country, a system of compensating people for the pain and suffering and medical bills accompanying that kind of injury. And my dad was a softie, and he really saw the worker side of things. We'd hear about his cases. We even went to hear him in court a couple times, watch him on the bench. I definitely sensed from him that the workers were people, all walks of life, all kinds of people got hurt at work. And the people, they deserved to be taken care of. It was not the days of, let them eat cake and whatever happens, it's your problem, the 12-hour work days and children working. He was a liberal, and he saw that as important. And then my mom was a public school, high school English teacher, and just really loved the kids. And she taught in my high school. And so that was weird, but she was the teacher that the kids were the least academically inclined, the ones where the home life wasn't so great and homework wasn't always perfect. Those are the kids that she felt the most passionate about. And I definitely picked up on that. They were not highly paid people, but we lived fine. And they showed that we're a part of a community. Mm-hmm. And I think I want to be part of the community. I don't want to be someone who's above or below, but different from. I just want to be in it.
Yeah, and we are going to touch on that very soon. But I still want to stay in your early days. How do you think that being first-generation Eastern European immigrant has forged your personality?
Well, my parents were the first generation, right?
Yeah,
I'm
so you're
second. Yeah. Seeing my parents, I knew one of my grandparents. I actually knew one of my great-grandparents who spoke no English. Seeing how they could make lives for themselves in America. The stories of their grandparents and their parents that were not so great from Europe. I think I wanted to follow in their footsteps. I wanted to be part of the community that can help people like they probably needed help. Like they were smart and they did well in school, but in those days, I think I may have mentioned this to you before, my father passed in January, so he's been in my mind a lot. And my brother was just ranting at me recently about, in those days, public education was wonderful. They went to Trenton High School. Trenton High was one of the best high schools in the nation. money was put into public education. It was a priority. And then you get educated people. And then educated people can go off and get the jobs and have careers that are meaningful and fulfilling and participate in the democracy. And I maybe I'm going off on a tangent here, but I do see a connection that where we've gotten in our country now, we have lost that devotion to public education, and there's been too much antagonism to teachers in public schools, and I think that has an impact on the electorate, and then you get people voted into office who don't believe in these policies, so it's a cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched on the government, and I wonder, what you think of the following. This country doesn't seem to have a social buffer, right? Like some countries in Europe. And this is why you exist, right? You and the Housing Initiative of Princeton, to provide for what some countries government provide for their own citizen. I mean, are you advocating for the government to provide more support and social service? Or do you think that the model that is in place today is sufficient?
I am very much advocating for the government to be more involved in providing social safety nets, housing in all kinds of ways. HIP is a member of a national organization called the National Low Income Housing Coalition, which is a huge lobbying advocacy firm in DC. And I try to stay on top of what kind of legislation is out there nationally and statewide that's in terms of housing, going to try to make things better without little agencies like Housing Initiatives of Princeton trying to, keep people afloat. So, there's a state, I don't know if you're aware, but we do have a rental assistance program that just got put into effect in the midst of the COVID crisis. There's $100 million going to be coming. I think some of the money is federal, but it's coming through the state for rental assistance, just because of what this problem that we know is happening right now, where people aren't working and are unable to pay their rent. But it's going to start. You can apply in July. The money will start flowing in September. So let's just say it works smoothly and it gets to the people who need it. There are people right now on June, whatever we are, 24th, 5th, they don't have any money to pay the rent right now. And they don't have money to pay rent in July, and they don't have money to pay rent in August. And so, and the government's doing nothing about that right now. The federal level, the Congress is trying to get a second wave of money to come flowing called I think they're calling it the HEROES Act. The CARES Act was that first tranche of money. But it's not coming. They're not agreeing. And one of the big pieces is the Democrats want emergency rental assistance in the bill now because people cannot pay their rent. But, you're not going to see that. I don't know what kind of compromise they'll come up with. But, clearly many European countries do better at this. And, I would like nothing more than to have HIP become obsolete because we're not needed because people aren't getting evicted from their homes.
So we understand that HIP provide a roof for people who don't have a roof. Can you tell us a bit more about what exactly is HIP? When does it jump in to help people? How do people actually what do people have to do to be part of this program, and how many housing you provide?
Okay. Well, we have basically two programs, and one is the actual, as you say, roof over the head. It's for what we call a transitional housing with wraparound services. That program is for families because our housing units are only 2-bedroom. So we can't, unfortunately, help single people, and we can't help people with too many kids because we don't have units that are large enough at this time. With this program, we really help 5 families at a time. It's small, but it's very deep. So a family that is working, low wage earning, with a kid or a couple of kids can apply to us, and we will try to provide a safe, clean, nice apartment unit in Princeton, where the public schools are excellent, and help them move in, provide them with furniture, and then over the course of 1 to 2 years, which is the time frame for the being part of that program, we will provide the family with many services that we think it takes for a family or an individual who is at the low end of the earning scale, who maybe has limited education, who has had some hard knocks in life. That's what they need to get to a better place and be able to be self-sufficient and provide for their families. So, for example, we have a case manager who's a trained social worker. We have a financial counselor, or we contract with financial counseling so that early on our folks learn how to look at their budget, figure out what it is they're making. We're charging 30% of their income to rent, which is the low end of affordable. But they are working and they should pay for their rent. But then they can budget the rest of the money, and it should be doable, because whatever their income is, we'll take only 30% and we'll subsidize the rest. We also have a career counselor. We have a couple different types of career counselors that can help with resume and interviewing and looking for jobs. We're counseling on what kind of education you might want to do while you're here in this safe bubble, and can take some risks, maybe work fewer hours and take some classes, because you're here with HIP. We'll adjust your rent. We'll work with you. And we have had some great successes in that program.
Yeah, we heard Louise explain how you helped her actually network. I was quite fascinated to hear her mention that you provided her with sort of a how to mingle and get to meet other people in the community. And that was a big plus for her.
Yeah, Louise was very young and new to the community. And it's always hard to move into a new place. But when you're coming from growing up in Trenton, it's a different type of upbringing, a different kind of world. It can be intimidating to come into a whole new community and integrate your child into the system and the schools. But Louise is such a hardworking and so enthusiastic person that, her irrepressible personality and perseverance, is hard to match.
Perseverance, I think you're right. She also mentioned how she was on your back day after day, trying to see if there was an opening.
That is true.
At him, yeah. What did you, how did you react to this perseverance?
It worked. It actually did work. Yes, I don't know I haven't heard your interview with her, but I will say that when she first applied, I just thought, oh man, I don't know if we can help this young woman. We didn't have a unit at the time, so we couldn't. And she didn't have her child yet. And I said, you'll just have to wait. We'll see if something opens up. I'll be back in touch. And I definitely kept her on the list, and I didn't forget her, but nothing was opening up that quickly. But Louise wasn't waiting. So yes, it's true. What period I would get an email or a call from her, and sure enough, within not too long, we did have a unit open, and we were delighted to have her join us and be part of the HIP program.
So Louise is one of the person that you've helped. Do you have other stories of people that you would like to share with us?
Yes, we have many stories. We have, there's a woman who was an immigrant from South America, I forget where, and she really wanted to be a physical therapy assistant. And She was with the program for almost 2 years, which is usually when it ends, but she was so close to finishing her PTA degree at Mercer County Community College that HIP just extended her time with HIP, helped her with her rent, helped her get through, helped her pay for the test you have to take to get certified. And now she is a PTA, well compensated. It's a good job, physical therapy assistant. She lives over the Route 1 in West Windsor. She's looking to buy. She and her daughter are doing great. And she's a help. Like, she's someone who reaches out to me. We meet for coffee. She always asks what she can do. It's a wonderful thing. Like Louise, when folks graduate from the program, get on their feet, get to pursue what they wanted to pursue and follow their own trajectory, and then look back and see how they can help.
Yeah.
Help HIP and help others.
Yeah, incredible. HIP started in 2010. How many families have transitioned through the program already?
Since 2010, about 20 families have transitioned through, I believe. And just for the sake of history, it was established in 2001, HIP, as part of a consortium of nonprofits that was called the Princeton Outreach Projects, that was started by Trinity and Nassau Presbyterian churches. And that's an interesting history of the organization. And they helped only one or two people over many years. And then in 2010, branched out on our own and became our own independent 501c3.
And how long have you been involved yourself with the program?
Since 2016.
Okay. We started this conversation saying how much active you've been in the volunteer work. I've also read that in 2018 you were awarded the Bud Vivian Award for community service. So that really speaks about your involvement with the community. What are the most proud memory you've got of the work you've done?
Well, that's a hard one. I'm very proud to have been very active on the Planned Parenthood board for many years, and I was chair of that board for 3 years. And given where we are now in our political world, it really does feel like I was fighting the good fight by sticking by Planned Parenthood all those years and being an ambassador for Planned Parenthood. I feel very strongly about a women's right to choose and women's reproductive health. So that has such a big impact, it's such a national thing. So I feel very proud that I devoted that much time, money, and effort to that. But, for HIP is really in my heart now because of the kind of work we do, it is so hands-on. Planned Parenthood was big picture, getting out there to be an advocate, telling everybody, how important these rights are, giving money so the money would go to the right people to get things done and preserve this important right that women need. HIP is like the other end of the spectrum where you're really helping individual women. Most of our clients are single moms. And you're getting into their lives in a way that isn't judgy and isn't telling people what to do, but is trying to, be a partner with them and say, let's figure out how we can get this better for you and get you and your kids on a better track. And I want to help, and I can do that.
Right. As a child, what did you want to do when you grew up?
I wanted to be a lawyer like my father.
Do you sometimes wish you had been a lawyer?
No, I never wish I had been a lawyer. No, I was a lawyer for a brief time, and I really did not enjoy it. So I regret that I wanted to be a lawyer. I really do. I wish that someone had said I could have been a social worker. I think that would have been what I wanted. I think I wanted to be a lawyer because I wanted to help people. I didn't want to be a lawyer because I loved the law.
Right. So what's next for yourself or for HIP? What is on the calendar as a big project?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because when I earlier said we do two things at HIP, one is the transitional housing that Louise is an example of graduating from that program, and it's been wonderful. But the other big thing that we do, and what is on the horizon to be doing much more of, is emergency rental assistance, which HIP started doing, I think, the year before I joined, so in 2015. Seeing that, with 5 families, it's again not narrow, deep, but not a wide, impact. Wanting to have an impact on more working families, the idea of keeping people out of evictions, safe in their homes, because research shows that evictions can really, once you have an eviction on your record, it can spiral the rest of your attempts to get straightened out. So if you can avoid eviction when things get rough, like many of us, if things get rough for us, we have a safety net, we have some savings, we have friends that might help us, family members. Research shows that working poor people only know other poor people.
Right.
They can't help each other. They may want to, but they really can't. So this emergency rental assistance is a way for folks who may have hit a rough patch, had a setback, something as easy as a sick parent that you had to stay and take care of, so you couldn't go to work, or a sick child. We've been stepping up and providing funds for that. Money goes right to the landlord, and we avoid the eviction for the family. And what's coming next, as you know, in the pandemic, a lot of unemployed people or underemployed people who are not going to be able to pay their rent and are already not paying the rent. And that's where I think we're going to be doing a lot in the next few months. And we're fundraising a lot for that. We have been surviving on private money. And what we like about having only private money to provide rental assistance is no strings attached. For example, there's some government money that you can't help the person until they have an eviction notice. That's how they prioritize and conserve, resources. So unless you have an eviction notice, you can't even get help. So if you're being proactive and you realize you're getting behind and you realize what's coming down the pike, you go to some of these agencies, you can't get any help. They'll say, well, come back when you start to be evicted. But then once you have the eviction proceeding against you, then fees start. And so what HIP can do with all private funding is nip it in the bud earlier. People can come to us and say, I'm falling behind. Here's how, this is what I was making. This is what's happened. This is why I can't afford it. Can you fill this gap for us? And then we can do that.
Carol, the last question
Yes.
I always ask is, what is America to you?
America is not, right now, it's not what I thought it was. And I feel duped and I feel kind of silly for having the blinders on that I did. It's not as if I didn't know there was racism and I didn't know that there were bad actors and there's greed. I knew it, but I thought it was more contained. And I thought that people who went into leadership positions, I really did. I really thought that many elected officials did it for the right reasons and thought that they had something to give. They were smart, they were good at this, they were good at that, they cared about their community, and they were going to go represent their state or their district in Congress and do good. And maybe they had different political views from me. I'm not saying they all had to agree with me on every policy, but I thought they were basically well-intentioned with, as they like to say, a few bad apples. But what I think I was wrong. I think that power is a very dangerous thing, and people in power right now, and I'm thinking Mitch McConnell, I'm thinking of politicians in the Congress, not so much the president because he's in a different category all on its own, but he's been enabled, and I just didn't think that we would that these people would enable it this way. I thought there was more of a consensus of what we want for our country. And the fact that this guy can still exist and there's not just a complete uprising among his own party to say, oh, this isn't what we are. It's really makes me very, very sad. So America right now is at a crossroads, America right now can go in a direction that will at least help us get back to some of the values that I believe that we originally stood for. But it's tough. And the good part is, and I hate to be so negative, so the good part is we are looking at things. Maybe this was good. Maybe we had to get so low to see the racism, to see the ugliness, face it, see our own past and not brush it over, and then work towards what I thought we were kind of working towards in the 60s and 70s when I was young and I was a little, mini hippie.
Okay. Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
That was Back in America. Thank you for listening. Please visit backinamericahepodcast.com for episode transcript and to subscribe to our newsletter. See you soon and stay safe.